Now, here in the widget builder, we have 3 tabs for JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. In our case, you can see we have set up using Vue, and we are going to use Axios. And through Axios, we are going to be able to do a get, and we will obtain and then show our data here within the widget. The concept within Modyo says that every widget is independent and self-determining, whereby in the case of Vue, when using Vuex, which is a state management pattern for applications, every widget should have a store here. For other frameworks, the idea is that stores or state management patterns of every framework, all of these still need to be inside of a widget because every widget is completely independent. So here's the area for our CSS, our style sheet, and here's the area for HTML. And to initialize Vue, we need an element in the DOM to inject the Vue instance, such as a div, to initialize our L or element component. This element in our summary widget you can see here, it calls on the DOM element by the same ID, summary widget, which is an empty div, and we will use this to display information within our store mentioned earlier, as well as we are going to use this to initialize our application. Okay. So now in the case of Vue, the store manages our states, our initial data, right? We use mutations for changing from state to state. And then these actions here are for business logic or execution of state changes, such as more than one mutation at a time. As we can see here, we're using a widget that calls in the created method that if we look at documentation, it's important when using a framework to understand the life cycle of our application so that we can execute these functions at the indicated moments and the appropriate times. So the created method is here. This is a schema of the Vue lifecycle, and we have the executed methods within every lifecycle. Okay. So when creating a new Vue application, there are hooks that we can take to execute our actions. In our case, we're going to use created because this method is executed before compiling and showing the initial HTML. In the cases where we wanted to make modifications to the HTML through jQuery or other JavaScript, we could use the mounted lifecycle hook to modify the DOM and integrate non-Vue libraries here. So when all the HTML is available, we could make modifications through jQuery, such as modifying a carousel or for anything. So when using a framework, every framework has distinct hooks during key moments, and in our case, we want to use created to access the reactive data before the templates and the virtual DOM are mounted and rendered finally. Okay, so here we would fetch the data, obtain the data. In this case, we have a promise, and then we can execute the function in the promise in the future at the moment that we want to remove a loader, wait to consult data, or any type of flow that would be defined in something like the user experience in basically any project mockup that you have, as that will also define our various use cases for loaders, cases for errors, and in this case, when we want to integrate Axios into our system.